Still struggling with simultaneous equation? Well, I'm gonna go over one example to show you it's not as complicated as what you think it is. Alright, so here we have our two equations right here for a simultaneous equation. This is gonna be my equation 1, this is gonna be my equation 2. Now, in order to solve for our equations right here, we can either subtract or add. So when we subtract or add, it means that we're going to subtract or add all our like terms, so the x terms, our y terms, and our regular constants, in order to get rid of one of the letters or one of the variables. So in order to do that, you would have to look and see if on both equations, the number beside the letter, is it the same or is it the opposite? In this case right here, I'm looking at my x's and I'm looking at my y's. None of the numbers right there, they're not the same and they're not the opposites. So what I'm gonna do is I see a 2y right here and I see a negative y right here. So because there are 2y and a negative y right there, I know that I can multiply my entire equation 2 by 2. Because if I multiply my entire equation 2 by 2, then this y right here is gonna be a negative 2y. So if I add 2y plus negative 2y, that's gonna cancel out. That's gonna be equal to 0. So all my y right here will be erased. So what I'm gonna do, let's write all my equations right here. So equation 1 is gonna be 3x plus 2y is equal to 16. And my equation 2 now is gonna be 2 times 5x, that's gonna be 10x. And 2 times negative y, that's gonna be negative 2y, equal to 7. So note, so 2 times 7, that's gonna be 14. Yeah. So now that we have done that, we're just gonna add or subtract. But in this case right here, because I want to get rid of my y, I'm gonna add. So 2 plus negative 2, that's gonna be equal to 0. So let's add all our terms together, all our like terms. So we're gonna add our x terms together. So that's gonna be 3x plus 10x, 3x plus 10x, that's gonna be 13x. And 2y plus negative y, that's gonna be equal to 0. So plus 0, and that's equal to 16 plus 14, and that's gonna be equal to 30. All right, so 13x is gonna be so we're gonna have our new equation right here. This is gonna be 13x is equal to 30. So 13x is equal to 30. All right, so now that we have 13x is equal to 30, every time when we subtract or add, we're just gonna be using the same methods that we normally use when we're solving linear equations in order to get x by itself, or whichever letter you have in this case. In this case, it's my x. So I'm going to use solving my linear equation to get x by itself. So we have 13x. So what we're going to do, we're going to divide both sides by 13 to get what x is equal to. So in this case right here, x is going to be equal to 30 divided by 13. So 30 divided by 13 is going to be equal to 2.3. So 2.3. Alright, so now that is equal to 2.3, I'm going to plug my value for x right here, which is 2.3, in any one of these equations right here in order to solve my y. So let me put equation 2 on the board right here. So it's just going to be 3x plus 2y is equal to 16. And I want to find what my y is. So my x now is going to be 3 times 2.3 plus 2y, and that is equal to 16. So now we're just gonna multiply. So that's 3 times 2.3, that's gonna be equal to 6.9 plus 2y equal to 16. When we're at this point right here, we're gonna do the same method or the same steps we do when we're solving simultaneous equations. So my 6.9 right here is being added, is adding to the 2y. So because of that, if we're gonna move our 6.9 over to the other side or the opposite side of the equal sign, it's gonna change it the plus to subtract, because whenever we move terms from one side of the equal sign to the next, the number remains the same but the sign will change to the opposite. So we're gonna have our 2y is equal to 16 minus 6.9. Alright, so in the end we're gonna have 2y minus 16 minus 6.9, and that's gonna be equal to 16 minus 6.9, that's equal to 9.1. So 9.1, 2y is equal to 9.1. So in order to find our y, just like the steps for when you're solving our linear equations, when we have 2y is equal to, because the 2 is multiplying the y, we're just going to divide both sides by 2. So that's going to be y, because the 2's will cancel it out. So y is going to be equal to 9.1 divided by 2. So 9.1 divided by 2, that's going to be equal to 4.55. So y is going to be equal to 4.55. So what we're going to do, we're going to test it in any one of these equations right here to see if we get back our answers in any one of these original equations. So I'm going to test it out in equation 2 to see if we get back our answer. So let me quickly erase this right here. And I'm gonna put it right here. So that's gonna be my equation 2. So I'm gonna use equation 2 to solve, to see if we get our answer to be equal to 7. So that's gonna be 5x minus y is equal to 7. So x is 2.3, so that's gonna be 5 times 2.3 minus y, and y is gonna be 4.55. And let's see if we get 7 for our answer. So let's multiply. So by multiplying, we're gonna have 5. So 5 times 2.3. So 5 times 2.3, that's gonna be equal to 11.5. So 11.5 minus 4.55, that's gonna be equal to, so minus 4.55, that's gonna be equal to 6.95, and 6.95 is the same thing as 7. So just by doing this right here, we get back our answer to be equal to 7. We can test our answer also on equation 1 to see if we get the answer to be equal to 16. So let's test our answer to see if we get 16 for our answer. So here we tested equation 2. Let's test equation 1 for our original equation. So that's going to be 3x plus 2y is equal to 16. So let's test our answer. So we have 3 times x is going to be equal to 2.3 plus 2 times, or y is going to be equal to 4.455. And let's see if we get 16 for our answer. So let's go. So it's going to be 3 times 2.3. That's going to be equal to 6.9 plus 2 times 4.55. So that's going to be 4.55 multiplied by 2. That's going to be equal to 9.1. So 9.1 plus 6.9. So 6.9. That's going to be equal to 16. So here we have for both equation 1 and equation 2, we would have gotten our answer to be equal to, for equation 2 is equal to 7, and for equation 1 is equal to 16. So this is how you solve. Majority of the problems that we normally have, our students normally have whenever they're adding or subtracting in order to get or to get rid of one of the letters so we can solve, is when they're adding or subtracting. You have to be careful about when you're adding or subtracting your negative and positive numbers. Like for example, if you have like right here our positive y and our negative y, we could not subtract in order to cancel the y. We'd have to add, because negative plus positive plus negative would have cancelled out each other. So you have to be mindful of when you're adding and subtracting your negative and positive number. But the process is easy so far. If you follow along from the first step to the last step, you'll realize that it's very easy. All you'll be doing is just subtracting or adding your two equations. Just ensure that when for any of the numbers that you want to erase or eliminate first, just ensure that whatever number you have for equation 1 and equation 2, let that number beside the letter or that coefficient be the same. Either they're the same or they have to be the opposite. And when I say that they're the opposite, it means that it's the same number, but one is positive and one is negative. So that's what you have to do. So multiply your equation 1 or your equation 2, or sometimes even both equations, by any number in order to ensure that whichever letter that you want to remove first, you can just subtract or add in order to get rid of them first. Alright, so that's it. You should be able to better understand how to solve simultaneous equation by following the steps provided. Check video part 1 to see all the steps for when we are solving simultaneous equation, and for more practice you can check part 2 on the video if you want to see me going through all 6 examples of more complex questions. Thanks for watching.